Sweat Equity Podcast, the number one comedy business podcast in the world. We'll
do it live. We'll do it live.
The random one.
We've got
Sorry.
Adam and Jack, some long in the tooth fellas from Maximum Value. Maximum Value Partners that are coming on talking about small business growth. We're going to break this into a part 1 and 2. If you're hearing this in part 2 in the intro,
And you're like, they did a repeat.
we're just lazy and not going to do 2 intros to record after the interview we did. Hey, listen to us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Give us a 5-star review. Write a little something. Could be nice, could be mean. Just don't let it be vanilla. And then subscribe
Chocolate only.
Subscribe to the podcast. This episode is sponsored by Squarespace. All-in-one drag-and-drop website builder. You can do it with your 2 little paws. You don't need to program anything. They've got templated designs, and the new template, Fluid Engine, is pretty balls out awesome. You can basically design it any way you want.
Man, I haven't been on Squarespace in a minute.
I've been all up in that stuff, working on lawsmithworks.com, tocoworks.com,
Oh, yeah?
a little bit of sweatequity.com, but I can't move it to the new template yet because we have so much info on sweatequitypod.com. Let's get this episode, part 1 and 2. Let's get it started. Howdy toddy!
What about my sweat equity? Sweat equity. Sweat equity. My sweat equity. My sweat equity. Sweat equity. What about my sweat equity?
So how do you guys, how much of people's personalities and lives do you get into to kind of, assess them, or even, I'm guessing the DISC report gives you a little bit of that, but like just their daily habits and things like that, or just like how their own spending habits. You might look at them with a really nice car that they can't afford, and they're also trying to run a business.
The $100,000 millionaire.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we try to keep things focused on business, but as you might imagine, things, personal lives get involved a lot. As we're talking, last time on the show, we've coached a lot of couples over the years. So you got spouses. So we're talking about that, in terms of what happens, what doesn't happen, right? During the day.
God, that's intense. Okay,
I'll leave the room. You and Eric, you can talk to Eric.
Well, just it's true. That's like beyond couples therapy, probably, because then it's the money. And it's
He was recently all up in that. He's now in a better life.
Yeah, don't need that.
But was definitely doing the mom and pop shop.
I'd be like, okay, which one of you two is gonna not be involved in the business, because this isn't gonna work.
Well, I grew up with that. My parents worked together for 40 years. I thought it was normal.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
realize how unusual. I didn't realize how unusual it was. So we got in the real world and saw that it's very difficult. Well, it's difficult. Well, you might be. I don't know.
No,
it's certainly unusual, right? To be able to do that. And not everybody loves being with their spouse 24/7 either, right? But you have a lot of family that often gets involved in business too. So again, a lot of personal stuff will come up. We try to keep the focus on the business side of it. Jack and I are not, armchair psychologists. We're going to, take care of all their marriage problems, or their kid problems, or their sibling problems, right? It's more focused on in the business, and whether you should have those folks in the business or not too. That's a big challenge. Who do you bring into your business? And usually it starts with friends and family and folks that you know, like, and trust, as opposed to strangers.
You probably have a good story or two, though, from the couples. Maybe
we want to hear
that's
this.
That's what we make our podcasts out of usually. The issues that we encounter when we're coaching. They tell us everything. I mean, we serve as a buffer. We should have a psychology degree, but we don't. And they're desperate to talk to somebody. They just don't get information easy. Colleges don't provide it the way it should, and professional services, lawyers, accountants, they don't either. They're collecting taxes. Well, they might be put out of business with all the people being added to the budget here. But
business is psychology when you really break it down. It's really trying to figure out a lot of behavioral kind of management is a lot of it.
I mean, marketing is for sure.
Marketing for sure. Your intra personal relationships with partners, vendors, all that stuff. that's I always see it kind of that way. And my buddy called me a business therapist because, he came in wanting to be a client and just spewed all this stuff out. And if I tell them I'm a comic up front or they know that already, good Lord, they will say the most crazy shit of like ever. And you realize
people do that, huh?
Yeah.
I don't need to hear this intense.
I actually liked it because I want to know where their brain's at. I want to know if they're really invested more than money, when they're working with me. I want to know if I should have really assessed that as risk in a better way so that I didn't get bad clients. But we've talked about it on this show. If we have one thing we've talked about the entire podcast series is entrepreneurship's lonely. Even if you have your partner right there that's working next to you, because you guys are dividing and conquering, Can you guys have any, but do you guys have any fun? The game's between your ears like golf. Called it back. But do you have any salacious stories, some fun stuff? Like what have y'all been talking about on your podcast? Please don't talk shit about us on your next episode.
Do it. I don't know.
Actually, yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah, we can use the exposure.
Actually, be worse if indifference is the biggest hate.
All right. No, so you talk about couples working together. So I'm guessing the two of you have been involved at some point where you've had a couple that has an argument in front of you, and it kind of gets a little bit out of hand. And now, depending on your style, you might get some popcorn and let's watch the fight and see how it kind of goes. But most people try to get out of the room, right? And so we had a client for we were maybe a week. We were about a month and a half into it. We go in to meet him this morning, and when we walk in, the two of them are literally yelling at the top of their lungs at each other in the office building, right? That has 30 other companies in it, and they're yelling at the top of their lungs about something that happened 3 years ago at home that he forgot about, right? And literally, like, there's a vein popping in the middle of her forehead, yelling at this guy. And I said, "What happened?" And again, when they tell us what happened, I said, "Really? And you're bringing this up here now?" I said, "Yeah, I understand how uncomfortable everybody is, not only in your office, in this entire building that people know about you guys. People talk to the manager about you guys. Hey, the people in office 2, 3, 4 up there, they're very stressful. We could tell when they're in the building because it's always loud and they're always yelling at each other. It's absolutely crazy. How does that happen? All right. So you can get that on one extreme. The other extreme would be partners walking past each other in the hallways, not saying hello to each other. They just can't stand each other anymore. And so they've learned to kind of bite their tongues. We've had everything from spouses like that, or we've had brothers, right, who are great brothers but opposite styles. One says black, one says white, and they're both former wrestlers. And they said, well, we almost knocked out Greg out in the office, but they said, hey,
tell you what I'm going to do here, brother.
I'm cracking myself up.
Smackdown going on, right? Well, but they said, look, we're great brothers, but we are terrible business partners. It just doesn't work from that standpoint. So starting to kind of understand, what you bring to the table from that standpoint could be very, very helpful. But yeah, I mean, the trouble with family in the business, though, you know too much about them, right? You know all the bad stories that, well, so-and-so did this and they had a bad weekend and they went off on a bender. Okay, well, you know about that because they're your cousin or they're your sister, not because, it's relevant to what they're doing day to day. So often those things can get in the way from what's kind of going on and not be able to help the business go forward.
I want to know what the guy did 3 years ago.
Well,
he was yelling at
I was going to say, like,
something very minor.
A woman that remembered something?
I know. The more minor,
very
the funnier.
Small. Right, yeah.
My friend...
Something to do with a closet. Something, again, it was so... I couldn't believe that's what she was mad about.
My friend Liz Newman calls it, women will go through the file cabinet and, like, they have their Dewey Decimal System of shit they will bring up.
Solid state drive.
And it's just...
Instant access.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Neuralink. Just,
right.
Yeah, I got this on demand anytime, like Disney Plus or something.
Yeah.
It's, I want to hear about the wrestling guys.
Yeah. The brothers.
Do you smell what the Ebola is cooking?
Yeah. Was it the Bushwhackers?
Yeah.
Getting into bushwhacking?
What happened was they always knew that, again, the employees, much like kids, would come to whichever one gives them the right answer, so they would know which one to go to for different answers. But it was to the point where the one brother came to us and said, look, I can't work with my brother anymore. We said, okay, we can help you through that discussion, but, let us know. You have to bring it up. We can't bring it up. And so he brought up, we were about a year into coaching him, and he brought up, during one of the meetings, his brother had no idea. You can see his brother, was literally, pushed back in his chair, but almost brought to tears, like he was just surprised. He said, look, I don't care Like, you can buy me out, I'll buy you out, whichever one's fine, but we can't keep going as we are. So the brother who brought it to the table is one who wound up selling out, which is fine. And this is like probably 10 years ago now that it's been. And they both have been separated. And the one got into his own company, doing his own thing. The other one's been growing his, the business that the brother left. But they were doing okay. But again, they were very good brothers. But as business partners, it was too hard. And almost part of this, again, maybe you have it's two alpha males kind of going at it, right? It's hard for them to survive together. They have to have their own space to be able to do things, to be able to kind of flap their wings. And so it becomes very, very difficult. So again, understanding themselves, understanding each other very well helped them get through that process, for sure.
Yeah, I just heard a quote from Robert Kelly, a comedian, about comedians being married. I was married to a comic, didn't work out. And he's like, the couple should only have one headshot in the relationship.
Right.
I thought that was pretty genius. A lot of people can't. No, I think it can work. I just think it is unusual. I think family business, honestly, if you can avoid it, right? Like, if you're not that tight family, or you are two alpha entrepreneur brothers that maybe have the same skill set, right? So they're, they can't really divide up everything.
They literally used to do the division of labor of physical stuff or whatever.
They're ballerinas.
Are you going to help me?
Yeah.
Now it's all paperwork.
Right.
I don't want to do that.
And like, I feel like I see it, the family business strife, I see it when they're coming together but have the same skill set. So it could be a brother, it could be husband, wife, whatever, husband, wife, whatever. Husband, wife, husband. Yeah.
Do it into another one.
Yeah.
Utah.
A throuple.
Yeah, well, it's hard to have those discussions with family, because with family you have to see them. You have to see them at family functions, at the holidays, that kind of stuff. And so we had a situation years ago where it was transitioning from one generation to the next, and they wanted the two kids to take it over. The one kid had been working in the business since he graduated from school. The other one kind of came in a few years ago, and these two brothers couldn't quite get along. They're trying to find a place for the one brother. To your point, it just couldn't quite fit, and it's hard to have the discussion to fire your brother and talk to your parents about it, right? Especially when you're trying to transition. So we found an opportunity where the one brother basically threatened to quit. And he called us and said, hey, so next time he says that, you got to grab on it with both hands and not let it go. So it was about a week later, he threatened to quit again. I said, fine, you know what? If you're going to quit, that's it. If you say it again, you're done. And so he honestly, he forced his brother to quit, but his brother gave him the opportunity. So to give him the chance to go out on the higher road. But you're always trying to balance all this stuff, right? So when you're making a business decision, are you often thinking about what mom and dad are going to say? Well, if you're in family business, you almost are all the time. And so you can imagine how confusing that can be, or how that can impact or delay important decisions. And so that's a big part of what we try to push through. Jack is very, very adamant about this. I'm more understanding of it because I grew up with it. But yeah, you have to have certain conversations to get it set up properly. Or else it's going to go sideways quickly.
Yeah, it spills over. All that stress from work. Oh, things aren't going good at work. Normally things are good at home, but that spills over, and they're both feeling it. If it's a husband and wife, forget it. It's like, oh shit. Then it's all big one mushy pile of anxiety.
I feel like the best I've seen it with family business management is kind of I compare it to like being fluid, like watching hockey, right? Those guys aren't calling plays out. They kind of just know where to be. And some of the times they have to take a puck, to their body to protect, and sometimes they're coming up and setting people up with a shot, and they get nailed, trying to get a shot in. It's kind of that thing of like,
oh, they're getting beat up no matter what. I thought you were going to say score the winning goal.
I was trying to think of it. I was trying to think
and
of
then he gets punched in the face trying to do that.
Backline, front line. If you had a partner that was one and the other, you're going to get shit either way. You have to concede a little bit, but they're playing to their strengths already because they're in the position of a defensive person over here and a wing. But the fluidity of which hockey kind of works, I always look at that like they don't call plays. They can't really, they yell, but they can't really say much.
They also only work for 90 seconds at a time.
Right, but that's the
110%.
And that's how it can feel in business. Like you can feel like you're under pressure, and then all this other shit comes in. If you're not fluid, it just gets in the way. And welcome to a file cabinet argument from 3 years ago.
There's a closet.
What?
You don't even remember stuff like that.
Ooh, I've got a
So
good hypothetical
insensitive.
for him, and I split the room with this hypothetical. What do you think couples all time have fought over? This is all time in history. How to wash dishes or the temperature in the room? Fucking stumped him.
I'll go with temperature in the room.
Yeah, I will too.
I always think it's an easy answer. Definitely temperature in the room.
See, I've gotten it 50-50. I even put it online as a poll to see what it was.
I'm surprised. I want to see these people.
Doing the dishes back in the day, you had to do dishes in the river. It was a bigger deal. Like maybe you didn't have paper towels. So maybe it was palm frond. If we're going like Flintstones,
now
kind
I've
of
got my
cartoonish,
own river.
right? Like, don't use those dishes. Those are for company, kind of thing.
Well, didn't you just throw it as part of the laundry basket going down the river? You just throw them in there with that, didn't you? I mean, so whoever's doing the laundry does the
Yeah, but
dishes.
you got to have your head on a swivel like a linebacker. Like you got to be looking because look, your baby could float down the river.
Crocodile eat
Yeah,
it,
crocodiles and stuff, typhoid,
right?
stuff like that.
Consumption.
I thought I had y'all split. I feel like have you seen couples be mired in that and get out of it? Is there a good? It's like where they're fighting for eons, and then they did ayahuasca.
Or how did it turn out with the couple fighting over the closet from 3 years ago?
Yeah, it didn't work out very well for their marriage or for the business. The marriage failed a couple years later, and then the business failed right after that. You know, they actually
But the business made it longer.
a little bit. Yeah,
Good job, guys.
because it was assets when they divorced.
and they had customers who were paying them for a little while afterwards. But no, they had a life coach come live with them for a weekend,
God damn.
and we were joking about being a fly on the wall for that, and film that and see what really goes on. You get a real behind the scenes look.
A lot of masturbation, probably.
But yeah, right. So it's not if the marriage is not solid, business is not going to help. It's like having a kid to help fix your bad marriage.
Right.
It's going to make it worse.
Eric got a dog.
There you go. See,
My dog.
listen to my 13-year-old self.
I got a dog out of it.
Yeah.
I'll bring that back too.
How long have you guys been together? How long have you been together?
He and I.
When do we meet on Grindr?
This is like on the show together 5 years.
Yeah, I was doing it a little bit before Eric came on. He came on as a guest. We had recorded sketches and stuff, done comedy stuff previous. He came on as a guest, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And then, yeah, that was about it.
Happily ever after.
This is the longest relationship I've got.
Yep.
5 years, pretty good.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
yeah, you're beating out my ex-wife. I think. Yeah.
I don't have to say beating out.
Well, you're not
Poor
beating
choice.
her up. She's a small Asian.
I don't have to
woman.
beat her at all. I've surpassed her.
Any other nuggets of advice before we close this episode out? We like talking to you guys. I want to have you guys back on.
Yeah, we like talking to you guys too. You're a lot of fun.
And if you need scab guests for your show to come in, like a real guest falls through and you need some replacement USFL players, we can fill in.
Good enough. All right.
What any other? What's been on y'all's mind the most? What kind of last thing, and we'll close this out. What's been kind of recently y'all have been talking about a lot on your show?
Well, we've had a lot of discussion about couples has been one, but we've got just in terms of leading yourself. It's something you guys talked about a little bit earlier in terms of just kind of knowing yourself and be able to kind of lead yourself, set goals. What does it mean to kind of set goals and have priorities for you? That's been a big part of what we've talked about. And we've talked about off the air. There's been a lot of deals going on. People looking to sell or buy companies. That's a big way to kind of grow. That's it's a big area that we help a lot of our clients with. And so it's one of those things that involves the numbers though. So I saw a lot kind of doze off for a second, but you have to involve the numbers as part of doing the deal, right? So, but that's a good way to be able to grow your business quicker. Either add more products or services, or be able to take folks out from that standpoint.
Do you see any of the macroeconomic kind of news fear of the fear that's been out there about? I was just reading like, not a surprise, we don't have enough houses or something like that. Because of the 2008 recession, the builders didn't want to build. So it's like the lowest supply of homes since like 2014 or something like that. Or confidence. I think the confidence of builders.
There's more real estate agents than there are houses available.
That's
That's pretty funny.
depressing.
Yeah,
Them.
it's true. It's like a backup job for a lot of people for some reason. I'm like, it's harder to be a real estate agent now because everybody used to have they used to know houses before the internet. Like you knew stuff.
They're
Like,
gonna all go.
half
go
your job
away,
was like
slowly go away.
knowing where all the speakeasies are, and then now it's all about really just being good at the contract aspect.
You're right. It's evolved. Part of the beauty of small business is that you react to a lot of those big picture things going out there, but usually there's ways around it. I mean, a big part of being in small business and being an entrepreneur is reacting and adjusting. And so, whether it be inflation that people are worried about, or pricing that, it seems to kind of cool down a little bit. But, people always have some boogeyman that they're afraid of. And part of the beauty of running your own thing is you have the choice of what you want to do about it. So over the last year and a half, you get a chance to raise your prices. If you haven't raised your prices by now, chances are it's going to be a little bit harder. But hopefully you did. And so, part of the beauty of small business is you don't have to, necessarily be as worried about those because you can react to them. You can't control them, by any means. And so, but you have the ability to be nimble and to react quickly.
Adaptability, yeah. Jack, do you have anything?
It's hard to get excited about the future when it's so uncertain. So, if you're talking about short-term planning, you almost can't do it. It's without a plan, you're dead. And just very simply, and we aren't talking MBA style type planning with 70 pages and all kinds of graphs. And we don't believe in it. Even though we're college educated and come through the Kool-Aid, basically. You got to understand numbers, and you have to basically be flexible and have fun. When you get to become an old codger, then forget about it. It's just not going to work. You got to instill enthusiasm in your company. It's up to you to set the right culture. And we try to teach that because it's so important. Everything else is going to fail unless you have a good plan. Everyone understands it. Everyone's involved in what's going on in the company. You get to that point and you're successful. You are. And again, we define success as growing sustainable profits. The rest of it's bullshit. Anything that, you get a marketer talking to you and you listen for 8 hours over a couple of weeks and they never mention the word sales. How in the world can you have marketing without sales? How can you not have an eyeball on sales?
This could go for another hour.
Oh no, I have a question about where you're saying about having everybody in the company know what's going on. Can you speak to that a little bit more? Just
have a plan
with the plan.
Does the owner understand profit and loss? Does he know what a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement is? Chances are no. Statistically, at least half don't understand it. We'll ask somebody, well, were you profitable last year? Geez, I don't know. I gotta call my CPA and I'll let you know. So you gotta have that component in it. You have to. And if you have that and you put it in a format that you can quickly assess and make decisions on it, you're going to stay out of trouble. You have to. So the culture that's created in the company that we coach, if they stay with us for years, which most do, big part of the culture is going to be talking about the profit and loss and the balance sheet. Educate your employees to what profit's all about and how it works. They don't know. They just don't know. They don't have it figured out. As you can understand, it's pretty complicated. And that's important, and bring them into presenting components of the plan. So between a well-understood profit plan and understanding profits, you as the owner, especially if you can, you get people talking about that. So rather than going on a lunch hour or wherever they're going and they're bitching about the company and talking about stuff that's nonsensical misinformation, as they like to call it today, they talk about incentives, small incentives to become a utility czar, for example. You pay for electricity and water, all the utilities. Why shouldn't somebody be in charge of that. And why shouldn't they learn presenting skills? By presenting, I mean be able to talk about a small little carve out of the profit plan and make Susie the one who's going to understand the different rates and the different stuff. Get them involved in pretty intelligent stuff. Your good employees are going to gravitate to that and love it because they want to learn. And if you get good employees, which is pretty tough to do, well, you got to covet them. You got to hold on to them. They're going to make all the difference in the world. And we have a lot of fun teaching that. Both of us have a financial background, but I have an operations background and the companies I bought and before that too. So we take them through that. Owners talk about, big corporations talk about the biggest asset are our people, and they don't do squat for them. It's wrong. So get me on a rant.
No, we're going to let you go as long as you want.
I mean, yeah. I asked the question.
That's the beauty of the podcast. We're not radio, and we don't have to cut to a commercial. So
just buttons on a keyboard. Boop, boop, boop.
But
So I had a quick question for you, Jack. You mentioned the term old codger. Is there a young codger? I only hear it referred to as an old codger, right?
Codger.
Codgers.
I think by using codger, you're
Automatically, you're a codger.
Automatically.
Yeah. It's like 22 skidoo or something.
That's right.
Those are good. Good old phrases, right?
I'm going steady with my lady. You got anything else?
Not after that, no.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. We'll have you back on Q4 of this year, probably something like that.
Okay, yeah, we'll plan it for Q4.
I just wanted to sound formal. Well, Q4, we'll have you on. Thanks for coming on, y'all, and we'll link out y'all's social and website on our description of the episode.
Appreciate it, guys. Glad you could join us this time, Eric. Meeting you. Good seeing you again, Law.
Yeah.
Guys.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great